There are many small alternative parties, people making small efforts to try to create their own alternative party to the Democrats and Republicans. And most of them, even if they don't recognize it themselves, the rest of us recognize that they're fighting a lost cause. They're fighting an uphill battle, that none of them have the amount of money, power, clout, and manpower that is needed to actually succeed in getting elected to the government that we have, even if by some miracle here and there some little minority fringe party manages to get a candidate elected to some little post here or there, they won't have the ability to have any real effect. They're so thoroughly outnumbered by all of their colleagues will be Democrats and Republicans and maybe libertarians, or essentially that's about it. And with the exception of an occasional third party, occasional alternative party created by some billionaire out of his own, essentially out of his own ego, some billionaire Texas oil billionaire comes along and he's bored with hunting big game in Africa this year, so he decides he's going to start his own political party in the United States so he can become the President of the United States, and he doesn't succeed. He doesn't succeed in becoming the President of the United States, but occasionally he serves a useful function in splitting the Republican vote. Essentially what it comes down to. Because for some reason these maverick Texas oil billionaires that have billions of dollars to throw down the to throw out the window, creating their own ego-stroking third party, tend to be Republicans, tend not to be Democrats. And whether it's good or bad, probably generally good for these characters to come, these clowns to come and split the Republican vote. That's essentially what happens, and a couple of years later they go back to hunting big game in Africa or some shit like that, or buying a ticket on the space shuttle, some other stupid ego gratifying game for billionaires. And we're left with the same old Democrats and Republicans, and then somewhere there's a website for the now defunct third party of Mr. Billionaire who's up in space, tweeting about how cool it is to be up in the first oil billionaire up in space or some shit like that. So we recognize in all of this that most of the alternative political parties end up being much smaller little projects of less powerful people. You might call them disenfranchised in some manner or other, or sometimes the people are not exactly disenfranchised, but they're disenchanted. People who have some kind of slight amount of clout, like for instance, now he refuses, but somebody for instance, a person like, well, there's Ralph Nader, and there could be Noam Chomsky. He's been offered the opportunity and apparently turned down the opportunity to become a player rather than a critic of the political game. Noam Chomsky is not merely a spectator. He's definitely a commentator and a critic of the political game, but he's not willing to, what they say, throw his hat in the ring and put himself up as a candidate in this game. He just prefers to remain an impartial observer. But anyhow, occasionally you get some of these parties that are not necessarily complete losers. They're people that have a certain slight amount of clout, usually in the academic world. Someone like Ralph Nader might get involved in trying to participate in the political system outside of the Democratic and Republican teams. But most of these, you find a lot of these little political parties, and essentially the word that comes to mind is fringe political parties. And when you start to look at the principles, the platforms, the positions of these political parties, and most of them these days have a website, so you can go and look at their website and see they've got their little manifesto posted, FAQ, about us, who are we, and they'll post their little manifesto. Usually it's a bit, usually you end up finding a certain amount of wackiness, fringe mentality, like some party that believes in UFOs, Well, you don't have to know, but I'm telling you, and you can look it up for yourself. You'll find a certain number of these parties, in fact, will be parties that have part of their fundamental principles and platform is that they believe in UFOs, and aliens from other planets are visiting us, or will visit us, or are among us, and are posing as human beings. All this bullshit. Really wacky, delusional, drug-induced, fringe, paranormal bullshit. And that seems to be very often the type of people that have the commitment, the personal dedication to try to commit to creating this Don Quixote, this impossible dream of their ridiculous little fringe political party, completely denying in their own minds the reality of the complete futility of anything they're trying to accomplish, because they're completely outnumbered and outpowered, and on top of that, they don't recognize how delusional some of their perceptions and some of their party promises and platforms and positions actually are. So those tend to be the types of people that are able to continue committing themselves to this lost cause, this impossible dream. And they keep telling, it's ridiculous, it's pathetic. So, even when you decide to separate yourself, to disengage yourself from the Democrat and Republican two-party Borg situation, the collective Democrat-Republican collective Borg against which it is futile to resist, and by whom you will be assimilated, like it or not. And you realize that you're not going to play that game. You need to play a different game, and you start to investigate all these other smaller political parties. And check out their websites. Go to Google and Google political parties and look at the minority political parties, and follow the links, and you'll start to find all these little political parties' websites, and go look at them, what they stand for, and what they have to say, and how wacky so much of their positions are. At that point, you start to realize, well, gosh, it really is futile. Because even when you try to seek an alternative, there is no legitimate alternative. The alternatives are this wacky, fringe bullshit created by delusional mental patients or something, or drug addicts, creating these delusional, fringe, wacky political parties. How frustrating is that? How how much of a blow is that to your ability to look positively at the possibility that maybe you could align yourself with an actual valid, legitimate alternative political party, when you find that those that are presented as alternatives all suck. And that's putting it very bluntly, and by bluntly I mean honestly. And so very bluntly putting it, this is honestly the reason why, despite all of the little alternative political parties, I still felt the need to create yet another, because there's so very few of them seem to even have enough sense to be even worth aligning yourself with, even if it's a hopeless lost cause. And the hope of this little political particle, or polite particle, or political party, or whatever you want to call this thing that I'm not even certain that I really come up with the ultimate name that I want to settle on, the genuine principles. I'm not sure I want to call it genuine principles, genuine party, general particle, genuine this, genuine. I like the word genuine though, because that is a key clue to the whole issue that it's all about. There's so much phoniness, the whole political process, and everything that has to do with the power and how who gets power, who's able to pursue it, who's able to hold on to it. It's all so fake, so artificial, so phony, and so insincere, that to me seems the real core of the problem. And so, to me, it seems the core of the solution is summed up in the word genuine. Genuine as opposed to artificial. Genuine as opposed to insincere. Genuine as opposed to fake, phony. Artificial, fake, phony, insincere, and what was the fifth one that I left out? This artificial, fake, phony, insincere, and damn it, I just said it 2 minutes ago and I can't remember what the other word was, but genuine is the antonym. Genuine is the antidote to all of those words, essentially summing up the problem that we have with politics. It's all fake, phony, insincere, and artificial. Fake, phony, insincere, artificial. And so I like genuine as a core principle. And I like the word principle because that also, again, is important, to have genuine principles, to be based on actual genuine principles, and not just the lust for power and the greed and all the other fake, phony reasons that politicians get involved with politics. They don't do it for principles other than the so-called principle of grabbing as much power as they possibly can. But as far as actual ethical principles, as far as intellectual principles, that's completely lacking in our political system, in our Borg collective of a political system. And this is what I see as the core need in terms of creating some kind of an actual opposition, an actual alternative. We have to begin by recognizing what is the main problem and what is the main need as a result of the problem. And the main need, I believe, is a genuine, sincere realness and ethical, intellectual principles. And therefore, those are going to be the foundation of this party, no matter what I end up calling it in the end. As I said, the end. And the end. The end.